It was in Lagos, I can't say precisely the time, but it was in Lagos on the 1st of October 1960, where Nigeria gained independence, that is transiting from colonial rule by the British to self-rule by the Nigerian government. The British flag was lowered and the Nigerian flag of green, white, green was raised, was hoisted, let me use the right words. And from then onwards, 1 year, 2 years, 25 years, up to 50 years. Now we're talking about 59 years of nationhood, 59 years of statehood, 59 years of independence. If you take a vox pop, if you engage a lot of platforms, some will say we have done so well. Some will say we have not done well. Some will say we have tried. Some will say it's been an abysmal one. But will we say hope is lost? 59 years of Nigeria's independence, moving on, is the focus of Insight today on this segment. I have three gentlemen on set, quite an unusual one today. The character of this set is two, but we have three today. To my immediate left, I have the managing director of Enentis Communications and a public relations consultant. I used to say he's also a politician, Dr. Peter Edemu-Ete. Good to have you.
It's my pleasure.
Also, Ni Akinsiju. Ni Akinsiju is analyst, excellent, an investment analyst, and indeed a major and regular feature on the NTA. Good to have you on Insight.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Ayo Akonji does a lot of analysis, is a foreign policy analyst. Good to have you on Insight.
Thanks for having me.
Beautiful. The beauty of it has been democracy, military intervention, democracy, military intervention, and now we now have one that has run from 1999 to date, 20 years plus, and it falls within when Nigeria has hit 59 years of nationhood. Let me take the first shot from Peter. What would be your analysis generally, as much as you can say?
Well, I have mixed reactions in my mind as to how well or how bad Nigeria has fared. It has been a potpourri of ups and downs. In the first place, as a democracy, we are maturing. And at least the military interregnums have been laid to rest. Military coup d'etat, they're no longer in vogue. Democracy now is at the center stage globally. And Nigerians have come to accept democracy. See, one of the beautiful things that has helped us in democracy is the issue of choice. And choice must involve alternatives. So the freedom we have, the freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom to do what we should do to actualize ourselves as individuals in the nation, that is a good one. But having said that, we are not yet there. We are a nation of wasted opportunities, from economy to agriculture to transportation to health to education. What we have had a problem of leadership. When I'm talking of leadership, I'm talking of visionary, patriotic, exposed, and results-oriented leadership. We are not there yet. But with the coming of this current government, there seems to be a ray at the end of the tunnel. We seem to see a kind of motions with some movement. What has happened in the past has been motions without movement, where leadership has been about, it was merchandised, and it's not for the common good of all. But in this current government, we see leadership now making an attempt to put the people first in the front border. Like I said, we are not there yet. I also think that the way we are going, if the momentum is sustained, if democracy is sustained, with the mistakes we have learned from, past opportunities we have wasted, I think that we'll get there by and by.
Yes. But let me go to Ni. Let's look at the economy.
Oh, well, the Nigerian economy has been defined more or less by what I call the boom and bust periods in our history, especially boom and bust periods of around the oil and gas sector. But first, let's also look at our demography. In 1960, 63 or so when we first conducted our, I think 61 or 63 when we first conducted the national census. We were just about 61 million people. 59 years down the line, we are talking of an estimation of 200 million people. So, of course, when you now divide that by 59, you look at the rate of our growth in terms of population. So when you look at that demography, you now also want to compare it to our economic growth, the way we have used our resources. In the 60s, in the first 8 years of the 1960s, unfortunately, we had the Civil War. And as I will tell people, not many countries survive a civil war, and get out of it and get on the path of growth. Well, we're lucky we did that. But again, the end of the Civil War also signposted a major shift in our economic outlook, because then we started moving from an agricultural focused based economy to an oil and gas based economy. And unfortunately, because of the disconnect that we deliberately created, that we deliberately facilitated through our government, we forgot the base of our economy, and of course we started what I call a portfolio economy. A portfolio economy principally driven by the vagaries of price of oil and gas, and of course production, to the extent that by 1975 we had effectively forgotten the fundamentals of agriculture. And therefore our lives, our national life, was determined more or less by increase in the price of crude oil. So in 1972-73 we were awash with so much petrodollar that the major problem of government at that time was how we want to spend our money. That was our headache. Our headache was not how we make money. Our headache was how we want to spend the money. But by 1976, it was apparent we are in a crisis, and what government at that time was talking about was austerity measure, and everybody was trying to look in, and of course we've lost momentum in our agricultural area, agricultural sector and all that. Again, all that we forgot. Some years after, we were trying to reconnect back to agriculture, to solid minerals and all that. But by 1980, another oil boom came again. And we experienced that, and everybody again went into that frenzy. I call it the madness of capitalism. So it may be a mistake to even use capitalism, because capitalism is about productivity, industrial productivity. But we didn't even use our booms, to invest in productivity. We were only focused on consumerism. So we were spending money importing, goods from anywhere in the world. It was even so terrible at a point in time before 75. When we had the cement Amanda, there was import of cement from everywhere in the world that it got to our ports we could not clear, and we could not even get access to all these things to even build our infrastructure. So there's been a lot of confusion, unfortunately, Then, yes, we survived that, and we also had an opportunity, I think, in 1991, when the Iraqi-Kuwaiti war, when again, the price of oil skyrocketed and we had so much money. What did we do with the money? Thankfully, here we are. What we have instituted, and I keep telling people, over this year, has been corruption. And when you have corruption as a philosophical base of your economy, there's no way you can grow. 59 years after, we are still battling the monster of corruption. And people will say, oh, corruption is not a problem. I say, no, corruption is a major challenge And we can only be thankful to God that we have a government in place now that is taking it on as a challenge, you know. So I think going forward, just like my colleague here noted, the Buhari government is giving us a new focus. We can see deliberate act and policy of going back to what we have abandoned in the 1960s, going back to agriculture. Going back, and when you go back to agriculture, we are talking of backward integration. Backward integration simply means that you are now using the resources generated in the agricultural sector, more or less, and of course, inclusive of the solid mineral, you know, to as raw materials for your industrial base. It is on that basis that we can start talking of industrial growth. It is on that basis we can start talking of what do you call it, GDP, you know. And until we are able to have a strong economic drive along this line, we won't be able to change the template of poverty that this country, you know, has been defined with. And I quickly want to say this because it is important. When I see the figures of poverty in Nigeria, extreme poverty, you have poverty and you have extreme poverty. In 2012, and I keep reminding people, in 2012, we had 112 million Nigerians, 112 plus million Nigerians living under $1 a day. What that tells us is that Nigeria is what we call a poverty endemic jurisdiction. And we need to put that at the back of our mind as we try to resolve the challenges of our growth and development.
Okay. Let me say, well, we are privileged to have one of us who came after 1960.
Absolutely.
Okay, you heard the history.
Yeah.
I too came after 1960. And you heard what he has reeled out. You met it, you grew. And by our own perspective, any hope?
Oh, sure. That's good hope. I think Nigeria is a work in progress. It was really interesting hearing them reel out this background to what Nigeria used to be and what Nigeria is right now. We just read a few of these things and then some of them were experiencing it. But I think I know that in 1960 we had about just 2 universities in this country. 59 years after, we have 48 universities, federal universities, about 48 state universities and about 79 private universities. So that's already, that's a huge amount of growth. From a colony, we're now the largest democracy in Africa. So there's been an upward growth for the country and the citizens. But now looking into the dialysis right now, the leadership of the country and where the country is right now, where she's supposed to be with the right leaders, it's an eyesore. And then for people like us who we come from the younger generation who are looking up to our elders here, we begin to ask if the major issue that 2 of the previous speakers have alluded to here has been corruption. And that's the biggest problem we've had. And that's why someone like Mr. Masuli said Nigeria needs leaders, not looters. So I think we need to begin to understand that the country is ours. We also thank the fact that a lot of countries broke into 2 by having some little challenges that Nigeria has had and has moved over. They are no longer as one. We have Sudan. Ivory Coast was divided into 2 at the point in time until right now they came back together. So we thank God for the fact that we've still been one, even with our pockets of crises or crises across the entire country. But I think we need a proper direction of leadership. And like they all rightly said, the current leadership that we have in the country right now is attempting to have a will to see that this static giant makes a move. And we hope that other people will come and build upon this foundation. Nigeria, we have everything. We have natural resources, we have the human capacity, we have the wherewithal spirit, we have the can-do spirit, we're very entrepreneurial, we have everything in this thing. We just need to have a proper direction of people to lead this wealth that God has blessed this nation with for the interest of everybody, not just for their own personal interest. And I'm happy that we're having an electoral evolution. Our democracy is consolidating. People are now knowing that we need to hold our leadership accountable. So if you come for 4 years and you claim to do something, you don't do it, we vote you out. That's the only way I think we can begin to better our lots. And also education. We need to see how we can have much more investment in education. That's the only way that anyone who is nothing can attempt to try and bring progress into his country.
Okay. A couple of activities have been put in place to celebrate Nigeria at 59, and in one of the ceremonies, at the National Worship Center, Christian Worship Center, the Vice President, during his presidential address, said, he titled his speech, "A New Nigeria," and was very, very philosophical. So looking at a new Nigeria, let me imagine that he was projecting or prospecting a new Nigeria whose economy will be productive, not consuming. So if we transit from a consuming economy to a productive economy linked with what the Vice President said, what will be the picture?
Is that question to me?
Sure.
Well, I'll take a step back. For that new Nigeria to emerge, we must begin to harness the very many opportunities available to us. We are a country blessed with countless mineral resources, with good people. If you look at our oil and gas reserves, like my colleague me alluded to, we have wasted all the periods of oil boom in this country, and nobody has been held accountable. Right now, as we speak, our reserves are declining. From 37 billion barrels, it has gone to 36.4 billion barrels. Because of what? The PIB, the Petroleum Industry Bill, has been hanging in the National Assembly for the past almost 19 years plus minus. And when the remaining part of PIB is not passed, because they've broken down the bill down to, I think, to 3 parts, what is outstanding is it has to do with the fiscals, the financials, the community aspect. As long as that is not done, a lot of foreign final investment decisions cannot be made. So there's uncertainty in the oil and gas industry. Furthermore, we are producing right now the 2.something million barrels of crude every day. Oil is good, 70, 80. So what are we doing with the money? For that new day to emerge, the government needs to move from tactics to strategy in terms of planning and implementation. I am somebody who, I'm not a trained economist, but I'm a street economist who believes that
without flexibility?
Flexibility and reality. Rather than budgeting, for example, every year for this independence of capital expenditure, recurrent expenditure. At the end of the year, you cannot point at what has been achieved with the capital expenditure. Like I said in my previous contribution, if you talk about education now, where are we? When we were in the university in those days, the bulk of our people were coming from outside Nigeria to school in Nigeria. Today, the reverse is the case. Look at the brain drain happening in the health sector. We are not there. So I'm saying that we could use the oil money now to support what Nii said, to go back to what was the foundation of Nigerian economy, agriculture. We will have to diversify the economy. Even the oil and gas itself, if you remember, Saudi Aramco, the most profitable country in the world, they posted a profit of $111 billion US dollars last year. Yet Saudi Aramco has invested about $9 billion in renewable energy. Now in Nigeria, we're not growing our reserves. In Nigeria, the money we are generating, despite the fight by the present government to say, okay, let's fight corruption. Beyond fighting corruption, we must have what I call signature projects that people can connect with. Is it in terms of building world-class hospitals? Is it in terms of building world-class airports? Is it in terms of building world-class education center or research centers? Or, I mean, name it. So as we talk now, poverty has become our second name, despite these huge economic resources that we have. So for the Vice President, what he said, I like the optimism. And I would really advise our viewers, let's not lose hope on Project Nigeria. Nigeria is still work in progress. We are the ones who make it work. So we should be able to support government to come up with programs and actions that we take off from where we have been going. I will now, rather than sloganeering or propaganda or whatever we want to call it, let's begin to see concrete actions in terms of things that are sustainable that will help our economy. Because like the oil and gas, now I talk with you, by 2040, the European Union, China, most of the industrialized nations, they're giving themselves a deadline to stop use of fossil fuel to power their cars and other things. They are moving now to electric cars and forms of renewable energy. So where will our market be? So this is a time now for government to be more strategic in fixing different sectors of the economy. 2, the issue of production is key. Then there must be production activities. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, we like consumption. From our weddings to birthdays to everything is consumption, consumption, consumption. So when we go back to agriculture, we also go, like India. India has become a hub for IT. Many of the big companies now, they are sourced they have distinguished themselves for IT. Can we not have an IT hub in Nigeria? I'm just thinking. Can we not have something that we can become the world headquarters to supply services to the world in terms of creating jobs? And finally, most of the government programs are in the air. They are not touching the ground. They're not touching the common man. We want to create jobs, good. How many jobs can government create? It is the small-scale SMEs that can create jobs. Producing, making finance easily accessible to small-scale farmers, small-scale businessmen. You know, I know government is doing something in the Corporate Fund and some other projects, but we can do more so that we'll be able to generate more production. People are more engaged. And then finally, security, we're not there. You know, without security, no economic development can take place. Government has to fix the security situation in this country that seems to be spiraling out of control.
Okay,
yes.
Let's proceed. The private sector. We have seen some good signs of it being involved. If it is sustained, what's your projection?
I think I'll also use the opportunity to correct some of the thoughts of Ete here.
Okay.
yes. That's why we are here. Yes.
I follow the government a lot, and being a policy analyst too, it's always a passion, you know, to look at issues and policies on how they also prospectively impact the population. I think for the first time in the history of this country, we have a government that is in a multi-dimensional way addressing the issue of poverty. You know, when you look at the SIPs, the Social Investment Program, it's not every day that you see the kind of what I call portfolio programs, you know, and the implementation. Yeah, there may be issues in implementation, but I always say the first thing is to have a policy that works. When you are implementing, there may be itches and glitches. Those ones you can correct, but are the programs objectively targeted? So you have the school feeding program targeting school children. You have the conditional cash transfer. You have the government economic empowerment program, the traders' money, and all that. Now, it is actually an acknowledgement of the poverty endemicness of our jurisdiction that we have done. That is when. Then to talking about legacy programs, legacy projects. I think it's also this government that had been able to say, okay, we are going to have a presidential fund specifically targeted at these programs, projects. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, the Lagos-Kano Railway Line. Even if that is the only project, you know, that is executed by this program, it's enough for me, because it is going to open up a whole lot of economic activities in that corridor. And in addition to that, you also have the second Niger Bridge that you can now visibly see coming out of the river Niger. That for me is a strong legacy project. And you also have the Mambila electric generation project. That is huge. See, just these projects alone, if they are the main achievements, by 2023, we can say all these 4 or 5 programs have been realized, projects have been realized. Nigerians would have inherited for the first time, you know, something that can be pointed out that will have multiplier effect, you know, on Nigerians. The private sector is the major driver of any economy.
Sure.
But the private sector cannot do it without the proper impetus and regulation by the government, either at the level of the federal, that's the national, or the level of the subnational. But what we are seeing now is encouraging. even in the making of the economic recovery and growth plan, the private sector was very, very involved, And my own position is that we cannot also leave the economic space to the private sector alone. You cannot, I do not apologize for my economic proclivity, which mainly is like people's focused, I am not an advocate of demand and supply mechanism, what they call the free market mechanism. I always believe that the system would allow for the market to orientate, policies, but the government must always be ready to intervene on the side of the people. That is my philosophy when it comes to economy. And I believe there's a good mix of this ongoing. But the important thing, when you have this kind of philosophy, you need the mass of the people to constantly understand the essence, of programs and how it will impact them. We talked about the second Niger bridge. I also understand that people around that area that will be the major beneficiaries of the project are demanding for 10 billion naira compensation, before such is realized. That is wrong. We must have a way of mobilizing patriotic nationalism, in the delivery of some of these projects. And of course, even in the consciousness of Nigerians, every Nigerian should know that we are in a crisis situation and we should contribute individually, to how we get out of this. It's not going to be about Buhari alone, or it's not going to be about any governor alone or commissioner somewhere. It has to be about individuals, about individual Nigerians contributing their own small little quota to the growth projection.
Okay. Ayo,
yes, please.
You belong to a particular space in Nigeria, the very active one.
Yes.
And most times will say, why use the word? They always use the word, the future leaders of tomorrow, the leaders of tomorrow, the leaders of tomorrow. Can we talk to the youths as we mark 59 years of independence?
Oh, sure we can. The youth are the heartbeat of this country. The population, you're talking about ICT, like having a mix now in the economic growth of the country. Now ICT is like our forte. And you have young Nigerians who are providing services that are adding value to our GDP. Lots of them, lots of hubs on their own without even having government backing into it. There's one that has a company called Andela. I think when Mark Zuckerberg, the co-founder of Facebook, was in Nigeria, he went there, he visited, he invested about $20 million into that company. And what they do is that they provide services for anybody that needs any services online. You just come, go to them, check them. So we have young people who are really very smart. But we also need direction. We need to have role models, because they are more experienced than we are. So for us to be the heir to the throne, we need to be schooled.
Is that a minus?
It's a minus and a plus. It's in both ways. But I have a very favorite quote of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, who says, "Power is not served a la carte. You earn it." So we don't fold our hands and say, because we're youths or we're young, we get it. We have to join the process. So the young Nigerians who are watching this program, Nigeria is ours to be taken. But we have to play by the rules. We have to understand how the game is being played in all facets of life, be it agriculture, be it ICT, be it politics, be it health, whatever it is we want to do, understand what is going on there, tag along with people like this, because I'm tagging along myself with them, so I can learn from them very well. And then you know how to do it and bring the change, because when they are no longer here, we are here. When we're no longer here, our own kids will be here. So it's a curve. But everyone has to fill in that void properly. Like you were talking about national patriotism, it's very important. This is our only country. I can't be a Ghanaian or a Sudanese. I'm a Nigerian until I die. I bleed Nigeria. So I have to always protect Nigeria's interests, not just in Nigeria, but even abroad. And that's why we can appreciate our citizenry diplomacy. We had a few issues with Nigerians in South Africa. We saw what the government is doing to bring them back and find how they can integrate into the system. Same thing happened in Libya. Something happened in Burkina Faso and other countries. So we need to understand that we are flying the flag of our country, and we have to be the best citizens of this country. We have Nigerians doing very well across the globe, but we also have to come back home and ensure that Nigeria is doing really very good. So the young people have the energy, they have the zeal, they have the passion to see that this country can change for the betterment of everyone in it.
Now, let me take on Adam Peter again. what attitude should Nigerians at this time, what kind of attitude should they be putting up?
For any attitude change campaign to work, there are some perception drivers that will have to be put in place so that it can change people's attitudes, opinions, perceptions, and behavior. Now, when information is disseminated and people get it, it's processed. That process of processing it, the process itself now, it can be processed negatively or positively. Now, attitude change leads to behavior change. And most of the time, I won't talk about perceptions, because perceptions most of the time they're not based on reality, they are based on maybe biases or prejudices. Now, for Nigeria at 59, when I'm talking of government, I am not talking of federal government alone. I'm talking of federal government, state government, and the local government. I'm talking of also people that run this government. I'm talking to our politicians. Now, an average Nigerian today, what stake does he have in the Nigerian project? So what I'm talking about, that what government should do, is that government now should put the people first by coming up with more people-oriented programs, so that people now can see that, because the job of government is to protect lives and property. The job of government is to create an enabling environment for us to operate, where basic freedoms are guaranteed. The job of government is for happiness of the citizenry. When government is doing that by way of projects and programs, then I now go to attitudes on Nigerians. The attitude on Nigeria should be what? That we should not give up on Nigeria. This is our country. Like I have said, there's no other country that you can call your own. And I believe that when we contribute our quota from our small corners, it's like if you hold it, this studio is dark, you hold a candlestick, I hold mine, me holds his, I hold it, and we light the candle, the place will be bright. So the attitude is attitude of what? Optimism. Let's not give up on Nigeria. And I believe that things are changing and things will change for better when we persist. And when we insist, we'll get there. Okay. But if we quit or give up on Nigeria, or you want to chicken out, then what heritage are we leaving for our children? Even us who are living, where can I run to now that I will be comfortable apart from Nigeria? So we have to support government. And when I'm talking of supporting government, it can be by way of constructive criticism. It can be way of agenda setting. It can be way of supporting even program, commending the efforts they make. We should not just be critical all the time to say, this person, let's not give up on our leaders. We still support them, advise them, encourage them. And then what we can do from our own small corners, let's do in terms of contribution to state or local government or national development. And that way, I think our 59th anniversary anniversary will be better celebrated and Nigeria will be greater tomorrow.
Well, Ayo has said we can't be Ghanaians, we can't be Kenyans, we can't be Indians, but we are Nigerians. And that leads me to Reverend Baya. He spoke in one of the Independence Anniversary events where he centered his speech on peaceful coexistence for national development. And the president of CAN amplified it by talking about we must love ourselves no matter what. We are multifaceted, ethnic-wise, though we are still in the hundreds. In some other climes, their ethnic and nationalities is in thousands. But Nigeria is talking about in hundreds. How do we sustain that fusing together?
Yeah, well, Nigerians would first need to understand the fact that we have been victims of manipulations.
Sure, yes.
Physical, natural, or voodoo?
All our fault lines are made up. They are not natural to us. And that was why during the pre-independent struggle, you had integrative thoughts and ideas from our founding fathers, such that when regionalization came in, you saw the pace of growth at different levels of the region. But since then, it has been a case of leadership exploitation of our base sentiments. So where there is nothing wrong about being a Christian or a Muslim, somebody comes and use that to incite us against ourselves. Where there is nothing wrong about being a Hausa man, an Igbo man, or a Yoruba man, somebody comes to tell us that something is definitely wrong, and you can go on and on and on. But the truth of the matter is, poverty knows no color.
Sure.
Poverty knows no ethnicity. It knows no religion. A poor man that is a Hausa man is a poor man, is the same thing as a poor man that is a Yoruba man, or a poor man that is an Igbo man or an Idoma man. It's not likely you get food to eat in the morning. It's not likely you have assurance of eating in the afternoon. But somebody, even in your hunger, somebody still comes and says, oh, somebody is better than you because of so many things. All that person wants is access. He's only looking for access to resources, and use it for his own selfish interest. So what Nigerian, I watched a video and I shared it on Facebook. A reverend gentleman put it succinctly that people are using people to get to where they want to get to, and that everybody must open high and shine high. Well. So we need to start looking at ourselves in the context of Nigeria. And I tell people, there's a mistake so many, especially those in the larger tribes, make, that Nigeria is defined by the large three tribes. No. The large three tribes are the welders of the the more than 300 other ethnic groups that we have in Nigeria.
Okay. Let me allow Ayo to put a snippet of it before we shut down this segment.
Yeah.
The youths, crime and criminality, in conclusion.
When it comes to things like this, the youths are the end users of it. And it still stems to the fact of what he was trying to talk about, this fault lines that are being exploited for the common goods of those who want it. And they use the youth as the pawn for it. And why this happens is because people are maybe unemployed, or people don't really have any skill set to do, so they become very idle, and they're the ones that used to cause more chaos. But we need to understand that the youth, like I keep saying, the youth is like the fabric of society. So we need to constrain ourselves from being used as a pawn in these chess games by these elements who are trying to destabilize the country for their own personal reasons. And know that we are our brother's keepers. And know that we are the heartbeat of the country. We need to show that without us, the country is not going to move forward. So we need to come together. And that's the spirit of the can-do spirit, the spirit of unity. I schooled in ABU Zaire, and ABU Zaire afforded me the opportunity of making it was very cosmopolitan. I had friends across the entire country. So that's how it's supposed to be. So I feel at home anywhere in this country I go to. So we need more of those spirits across board, and we need to be more tolerant among ourselves, among our ethnic groups, among our religious lines, and accommodate each other. And I think with that we can cohabit peacefully, harmoniously, and the country can move forward.
Thank you very much. Let me say, gentlemen, as much as time allowed, we have been able to dot and go across as much as we could. Starting with Ayo Akonji, it was nice having you on Insight.
Thank you very much.
And as usual, me, Akinsiju. Thanks for being on the program.
A pleasure always.
And I must say, we more or less conscripted.
Yes.
Thanks for the short notice I made in here.
It's my pleasure.
Hope it's not lost on Nigeria is a project.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe we can simply say, would we say 59th independence and anniversary of Nigeria?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are going,
Happy Independence Nigeria.
Happy Independence Nigeria.
Yeah,
Higher.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Up next on Inside is the media review segment. Don't go away.